Assalamu alaikum students. Today we'll discuss further about the skeletal system. Last week also we discussed about the skeletal system, but it was about the axial skeleton which is in the midline. Today we'll discuss further about the second part of that is the appendicular skeleton. Okay. So as we have seen, this is the axial skeleton which we studied in the last week. The head, the skull, the mandible, the vertebrae, ribs, sternum, everything. Today we'll discuss about the appendicular skeleton, which is shown in pink here. Okay, so that is the upper limbs and the mainly the lower limbs. So if we see the appendicular skeleton, it is divided into two parts, as I said. One is the upper limb and the second limb. Okay. Along with its girdle, girdle means that part which is attached. Okay. So the shoulder girdle, that is the attached part, and the bones of the upper limb. All these are the bones of the upper limb. Similarly, in case of the lower limb, the pelvic girdle, this is called as the pelvic girdle, and then the bones of the lower limb. So this will be mainly about these bones which are in the upper limb and the lower limb. Now coming to the shoulder girdle, which is also called as the pectoral girdle. Pectoral girdle. Okay. So it consists of two important bones. One is called as the clavicle and the scapula. Clavicle also called as the collar bone, as well as the scapula, the shoulder blade. This is the scapula here. So this is the scapula, okay, and the clavicle. The clavicle, if you see, it has two parts, the sternal end and the acromial end. We'll discuss it. We'll show the picture, then we'll discuss more. Okay, so this is the clavicle here. Okay, so this is the clavicle here. Okay, so this consists of two ends. One is called as the sternal end and the acromial end. Sternal end articulates medially with the manibrum sterni. We had seen in the last week the manibrum with the three parts: manibrum, the body, as well as the xiphoid process, which are the three parts. Okay, the manibrum sterni, the upper part, will be articulating with the clavicle. So that part of the clavicle which is articulating, that is the here, and if you see here, so this part, this is called as the sternal end, sternal, because it is attached to the manibrum sterni. Okay.
Doctor, sorry for interrupting you, but we didn't finish the last lecture.
We did not complete it.
No.
Okay. Okay. Let's try to finish it today and this one. Then, if we get time, we'll go.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a class at 7 o'clock?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we'll try to finish whatever is possible. Okay, the second end is called as the acromial end. This is the acromial end because there is a part called as acromion process in the scapula. Okay, so this part of the clavicle will articulate here. So that is called as the acromial end and the sternal end, which part is attached to the sternum. So these are the two ends of the bone clavicle. These are the two ends of this bone called as the clavicle, sternal end and the acromial end. So this is the superior surface and this is the inferior. If you turn it, so this is how it looks like. Okay. Then coming to the scapula, that is also called as the shoulder blade. This is the scapula of this shoulder blade, which has three borders. The three borders are the superior border. Okay, so here if you see here, this is the superior border. Then we have the medial border. This is the medial border. And here we have the lateral border. These are the three borders of the scapula. Okay. Then we have three angles of the scapula. One is called as the superior angle, superior angle. Then we have the inferior angle. This is the inferior angle. Then we have the lateral angle. Lateral angle is covered by a cavity called as glenoid cavity. So lateral angle is not seen because it is covered by a cavity called as glenoid cavity. So there are three angles: superior angle, inferior angle, lateral angle. Three borders: superior border, medial border, and the lateral border. So I think you know the difference between the borders and the angles. Now coming to processes, again there are three processes. One is called as the acromial process, which I showed you before. This is the acromial process. Okay. Then we have something called as the coronoid process. If you see here, this is called as the coracoid. Sorry. So this is called as the coracoid process. This is the acromial process. Then we have the coracoid process, and then we have the spine, the spinous, which is here. We can call it as the spine here. So this part, which is spine like, this is the acromial process in the front, and here we have the spine like part. Okay. So these are the three processes. One is the acromial process, then the coracoid process, and the spinous process. Then we have three foci. See, all these are three borders, three angles, three processes, as well as three foci. Fossa means space. Okay. One is the supraspinatus. Above this spine, there is an area. This is called as the supraspinous fossa. Okay, where this supraspinatus muscle will be attached. Okay, so it is supraspinous fossa. Okay, then we have the infraspinous. It is better to call this as the supraspinous fossa, because supraspinatus is the muscle. Actually, infraspinous, infra means below, supra means above the spine. This is supraspinous. This is the spine here. Here, this is the infraspinous fossa. Then we have the subscapularis. On the other side, if you turn this scapula on the other side, behind that is the subscapularis, subscapular fossa. The muscle is the subscapularis. So this is the supraspinous fossa. This is the infraspinous fossa, above and below the spine. Then behind that is the subscapular fossa. Now we discussed about the two ends of the clavicle, sternal end and the acromial end. Sternal end will be in contact with the sternum, manubrium sterni. Acromial end will be in contact with the acromial process. Okay, here. The clavicle articulates medially with the manubriums of the sternum by a joint called a sternoclavicular joint. So this part will be articulating with the sternum, and the joint is called a sternoclavicular joint. Similarly, laterally it will be articulating with the scapula, acromial process of the scapula, and the joint is called as acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular, because it is between the acromion of the clavicle, the acromion process of the scapula and the clavicle. So this is called as the acromioclavicular joint. So sternoclavicular, there are two joints which will be formed in the front. If you see here, so here now we can see here. Here this is the clavicle in the front, here with the sternum. So here will be the sternoclavicular joint, and here will be the acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular joint here. Okay. Now going to the scapula further. The scapula is, as you see, it is a very flat bone, triangular in shape, with three borders, three angles, three fossae, and all those things. So this is triangular in shape, and there is a glenoid cavity. As I said, at the lateral angle, it is covered by a cavity, glenoid cavity. It's a cavity is a very important cavity because it articulates with a very important bone called as humerus. If you again go back to here, this picture. So here you can see this joint here. This joint is formed by this is the bone called as humerus. So this articulation between the glenoid cavity of the scapula and the humerus. So that's why it is called as glenohumeral joint, or also called as the shoulder joint. Glenohumeral joint. Okay, so this is a very important space where the head of the humerus will be articulating with the glenoid cavity. Okay, the acromio articulates with the clavicle, that is called as the acromioclavicular joint, as we saw before. Acromion process articulates with the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint. Clavicle and scapula are known as shoulder or the pectoral girdle. As I showed you before, this clavicle and scapula together, they are called as the shoulder girdle or pectoral girdle, because they will be attached the main bones of the upper limb to the main axial skeleton. Now coming to the bones of the upper limb. Which are the bones of the one is called as the the humerus. One is the humerus, the second is the radius and the ulna. Then we have the bones of the hand, carpal. Then we have the metacarpal bones as well as the phalanges. We'll see these first the big bones, then we'll go to the smaller bones. Now the first bone, which is in the arm, this is called as the humerus, the big bone, strong bone. So this is the bone of the arm. Humerus is only bone in the arm. There is only one bone in the arm. In the forearm, there are two parts. The arm is the upper part of the upper limb, and the forearm is the lower part of the upper limb. Okay. So arm, where there is only one bone called as the humerus. If you see the head, so this is the head of the humerus. Fits into the glenoid cavity of the scapula. As we saw, the glenoid cavity is like this in the scapula. Okay, so the glenoid cavity, as we saw before, so here is the glenoid cavity. So in this socket, the head of the humerus will sit. Here is the head, and here is the glenoid cavity. So both will sit like a ball and socket. So it is called a ball and socket joint. Okay, so the head of the humerus fits into the glenoid cavity of the scapula. Distal and medially, trochlea articulates with the ulna. Distally, below, in the forearm, there will be two bones, which will be called as the ulna. Okay, so distally there is something called as trochlea. This is the trochlea. So this is the trochlea which articulates with the ulna bone. You'll see in a short while. You'll see the bones of the ulna and radius. Distally, laterally, we have the capitulum. Here on the other side, we have something called as capitulum. This is the trochlea, and the other part is called as the capitulum. Articulates with the radius. Later, I will show you the radius and the ulna. The elbow joint is a hinge joint that allows flexion and extension of the forearm between this bone and the radius and the ulna. So these are the radius ulna. Okay. So these together, these bones will form the something called as this is the elbow joint here. This is the elbow joint. This is the humerus, and here is the radius and ulna. Okay. Here is the capitulum, and here is the trochlea. So the capitulum and the trochlea. Trochlea for the ulna, and capitulum for the radius. Okay. So these are two bones. This is called as the arm, and this is called as the forearm. In the arm, there is only one bone. In the forearm, there are two bones. Okay, so this is about the humerus. Now going to the radius and the ulna. The forearm contains of two bones. Lateral bone is called as the radius. So this is the radius here, and the medial bone is called as the ulna. This is the ulna. So this is the front view. This is the back view of the same bones. So here you can see here. So this is the radius and this is the ulna. So this movement is called as the prone and supine position. Okay. So this is the supine position, and it's called as prone position. Okay. In anatomical position, the radius is lateral. So this is the anatomical position. Okay. This is the anatomical position. Supine position is the anatomical position where the radius will be lateral toward the thumb. So this is thumb. Toward the thumb will be the radius. Okay. With pronation, the palm faces posterior and the bones cross. So when this is the pronation. Okay. So when you twist like this, then it becomes the bones cross with each other. If you see here, this is the ulna and the radius is crossed the ulna. So this is crossing. Okay, this is called as pronation. Okay, so this is the supination, this is the pronation. So this is the anatomical position, and this is when you twist and turn. Now coming to the bones of the hand. What are the bones of the hand? So there are three types of bones here. One is called as the carpal bones, the small bones here. Okay, these are called as carpal bones. There are almost 8 bones here. Okay, then we have these are called as the metacarpal bones, which are 5, and here we have phalanges, which are 14. So these are called as phalanges. So 3 in each digit except the thumb, where we have only 2. Okay, so these are the three types of bones. Carpal bones, as I said, these are the carpal bones with in the wrist, and there are 8 carpal bones arranged in 2 rows. So there are 8 carpal bones which are arranged in 2 rows. Okay, so these are named differently. Each bone has a name. These are called trapezoid, trapezium, scaphoid, lunate, hepatoid, hamate, capitate, all these are the names of different bones. Okay, we'll not go into details about each shape and these bones, how to identify and all those things. Just you know, these are the carpal bones, which are 8 in number. Then we have 5 long bones. These are called as the metacarpal bones. These are the short bones. Okay, but these are the long bones. Okay, so these are the metacarpal bones. Palm of the hand will have 5 metacarpals numbered from the lateral to medial side. Starting from the thumb, this is called as first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Okay, so these are the 5 metacarpal bones. Then we have phalanges. These are the which are in the digits. These are called as phalanges. Okay, fingers or digits consist of miniature long bones. These are also long bones, but these are smaller long bones, so they are called as miniature long bones, called as the phalanges. Okay, the thumb has, this is the thumb or pollex, has 2 phalanges. Other 4 fingers have 3: proximal, intermediate, and distal. If you see here, this is the proximal, this is the middle or the intermediate, and this is called as distal. Okay, these are the phalanges. Okay, in the thumb only 2: proximal and distal, only 2. So these are the carpal, these are the metacarpals, and these are the phalanges. Now going to the second part, that is the pelvic girdle. We have seen the shoulder girdle with the upper bones of the upper limb. Now we are going to the pelvic girdle with the bones of the lower limb. So pelvic girdle strongly attached to the axial skeleton through the sacrum, as we have seen. So this is called as the sacrum here. So the pelvic girdle, this is the pelvic girdle which is attached strongly to the sacrum, and here will be the above will be the vertebra, the vertebra. Okay, so the strongly attached to the axial skeleton by sacrum, more stable than the pectoral girdle. So this girdle, because it is strong, bigger bones, it is more stronger than the upper limb, the shoulder girdle. Less freedom of movement, but this is strong but lesser movement. But in case of the upper limb, in the shoulder, there are more movements, but it is less strong, less stable. Okay, made up of paired hip bones. If you see here, these 2 are called as hip bone. This is one hip bone, this is the other hip bone. So hip bone. So these are called as paired bones because they are 2 in number, so they are called as paired hip bones. Okay. So made up of paired hip bones. Bony pelvis is the basin-like structure. Hip bones plus the axial sacrum and the coccyx all together form the bony pelvis. Together, this is called as bony pelvis, pelvic bones or the bony pelvis, with the sacrum, which is part of the axial skeleton, and this is the 2 hip bones, the pair hip bones. Together, this is called as the pelvic bony pelvis. Okay. Each hip consists of 3 parts, that is called a pubis, ischium, and ilium. So if you see here, each hip bone on right and left side has an ilium part. Then we have the ischium part, and in the front we have the pubis, pubic symphysis, as you know. So this is called a pubis, ilium, and ischium. These are the 3 parts of the hip bone on either side, both the sides. Okay. Now coming to the bones of the lower limb. The bones of the lower limb. Which are those? One is, in case of the thigh, there is a bone called as femur. In case of the thigh, there is a bone called as femur. In the leg, in the lower part of the lower limb, that is called a leg, has tibia and fibula. Just like in case of the upper limb, the upper part of the arm will have only one bone, humerus. Similarly, we have femur. In the lower part of the arm, forearm, that is radius and ulna. Similarly, we have 2 bones here, tibia and fibula. And then the bones of the foot bones. Just like there we have the carpal bone, here they are called as tarsal bones. Then metacarpal, here this is called a metatarsal. And phalanges is same name here. Okay. So we'll go to these bones one by one. So the first bone is the most important bone, called as the femur. This is the longest and thickest bone in the body. This is the longest bone in the body. Okay, femur is the bone of the thigh, and it is the longest bone and a very important bone. At its distal end, articulates with the tibia. Okay, so if you see here, this is called a distal. Proximal means toward the axial skeleton, it is called as proximal, and this is the distal. So near the distal end, the tibia will articulate here. There is a bone of the leg that is called as tibia. So it will articulate with tibia, but it is also articulates anteriorly with the patella. In the front, we have a bone called as patella, also called as the kneecap. We had seen in the last classes that patella is the biggest sigmoid bone. So that patella will be articulating with the femur. As I said before, patella is the largest sigmoid bone in the body. So here you can see here, this is the patella. So above here we have the femur and below we have the tibia. So this is the X-ray of the same. So here in the thigh we have the femur, lower end, and this is the upper end of the tibia. And there is one more bone here, this is called a fibula. And here in the front you can see the patella, so which is within this ligament. Okay, so this is called as patella ligament. Okay, so this is the patella. Patella is the largest smart bone in the body. It is a circular bone, articulates with the femur and the tibia, as we can see here. So this patella is articulating with the femur behind as well as the tibia through this patella ligament. Now coming to the bones of the leg. Leg, as we have seen, there are two bones. One is called as the tibia. Here, this is the tibia, and a smaller, thin, long bone. This is called as the fibula. Thick bone is called as tibia, and the thin bone is called as the fibula. Tibia is the medial in position, is larger than the laterally position fibula. So this tibia will be on the medial side. Medial means toward the center, and this will be lateral outside. Okay, and is a weight-bearing bone. So this all the weight from their body, so it will be transported to the bone. This is the tibia. So that's why it is stronger and larger bone. Fibula, this is the thin fibula. It does not take part in the knee joint, so it is not going to the knee joint. Knee joint is here on the top with the femur, so it is not going there. So it does not take part in the knee joint and forms only the most distal part of the ankle joint. Here below, it forms a joint part of the ankle joint, so it articulates only with the ankle joint. Now coming to the bones of the lower limb, the foot. Lower limb bones, they are in that the foot. Okay, so which are the bones? We had seen that in case of the hand we had the carpal bones, 8 carpal bones, but here in case of foot there are 7 tarsal bones. They are carpal in the hand, and here in the foot they are tarsal. Okay, but there are 8, here there are only 7 bones. Metacarpals, there in case of hand, here they are metatarsal. There are also 5, here also 5. And phalanges, there are also phalanges, here also phalanges. There are 14 in the hand and 14 in the foot. So this is same. Okay, here they are metatarsal, 5 number is same, but there they are called a metacarpal, here they are called a metatarsal. Here these are tarsal, they are carpal, and they are 8 in carpal bones, here they are only 7. So that is the difference between the foot and the hand. Now coming to the each toe has 3 phalanges except the big toe. Just like in case of the hand, the thumb has only 2 phalanges. Similarly, here it is called a big toe. Okay, so it is called a big toe. So where it will have only 2 phalanges, all others will be 3 phalanges. Just like there, proximal, intermediate, as well as distal. The big toe has 2 phalanges, proximal and distal, just like in case of the hand. So here also there are 2. There are 7 tarsal bones which are organized in 2 rows with an intermediate bone between the 2 rows on the medial side. So there are 7 tarsal bones, just like in case of the hand. There are 8 carpal bones. Here there are 7 tarsal bones which are organized in 2 rows, just like in case of hand, and intermediate bone between the 2 rows on the medial side. So this is the arrangement of the bones. Okay, in case of the foot. So let me show you a picture of that. Let me show you. Okay, we don't have a great picture for that. Okay, let me go back to the first picture. So here you can see. So this is the picture showing you the tarsal bones. Then we have the metatarsals, and these are the phalanges. 14 phalanges, just like in case of hand there are 14 phalanges. So here also, here the metatarsal bones, Here they are metacarpal. The metacarpal, here 5, here also metatarsal 5. Here they are called as the tarsal bones, here they are called as carpal bones. Carpal bones are 8 and here tarsal bones are only 7. 2 bones in the forearm and 2 bones in the leg, and 1 bone in the arm and 1 bone in the thigh. Okay, so this is the arrangement of the bones in the upper limb and the lower limb. Now going to the next part, that is the healing of the bone fractures. So if there is fracture, you might have seen and you might have sometimes even had yourself the fractures. It is common, especially in case of young and other thing, and in case of old, even in case of adults, if there are any accidents and other things, and because of the bone deficiency, calcium deficiency, there can be fractures. So if there is fracture, how the bone heals? Okay, so this is called as the healing of the bone fracture, healing of the bone fracture. Okay, so this is in 4 stages. As you can see here, these are the 4 stages. So initially, when there is fracture, there will be rupture of the blood vessels, breaking of the blood vessels, rupture, and there will be hematoma formation. This is the blood coming out and oozing out. So this is called as hematoma formation. Hematoma formation. In the next stage, then there will be fibrocartilage callus formation. Slowly there will be formation from this hematoma. Slowly the next stage is there will be formation of callus, external callus, internal callus everywhere. There will be fibrous tissue and cartilage which is being formed. Now it starts healing. In the third stage, bony callus formation. As you can see here, so all this blood is replaced now by the fibrous tissue and the cartilage. So now it starts forming the bony callus of the spongy bone. Okay, is formed here. Then in the fourth stage, there will be bone remodeling. Remodeling means now it has become wide and abnormal everything. So with remodeling, it will get back to its shape. It is getting back into its shape just like before. So that is called as a remodeling. So these are the 4 stages of the healing of the bones. One is the hematoma. Initially, as soon as there is fracture, there is hematoma formation. Then there is fibrocartilage callus formation. Then bony callus formation. Then there will be remodeling. These are the 4 stages of bone healing. Now coming to the factors affecting bone metabolism and healing. So this is very important, especially if there is any fracture. Imagine a fracture in the mandible or any other bone. So what are the factors which help in healing? So in some patient it will heal fast and in some patient it heals slow. So why it is so? Because of some important factors. Okay, which are those? One is the nutritional factor. Nutritional factor, how the nutrition is, especially the calcium and the phosphate, very important. These are the very important nutrition which are necessary for the bone. Okay, calcium and phosphate. Deficiency of these nutrients will lead to rickets in case of children, and in case of adults, it will lead to osteomalacia. Osteomalacia. In case of children, it will be rickets, and in case of the osteomalacia. Apart from this calcium and phosphate, there is also a requirement of vitamin D, very important, especially which leads to rickets in case of children because of the deficiency of vitamin D, which is necessary for the absorption of calcium and phosphate. Then also vitamin C, a very important nutrition which causes scurvy. Okay, so these are the nutritional factors which help the healing of the bone. The second part is after the nutrition is the hormonal factors. Important hormones which help in the healing will be the calcitonin, parathyroid hormone, growth hormone, and thyroid hormone, which regulates the calcium deposition in the bone itself. So all these hormones also help in the bone healing. So this is all about this lecture. Uh, uh, so if you have any questions regarding this, you can ask me.